Well, I wanted to talk a little bit on our Facebook community about that message. I want to open up to our online community, have some conversation, and just hear kind of what God was saying to you. I know God was speaking to me a lot. Pastor Wayne really brought it from New Hope Fellowship Church in Honolulu, Hawaii. Really cool to hear what God had said to him to bring to our church. And it was cool to hear that their church was simulcast in, so we had kind of a online community with another physical church somewhere else, which was really cool. And and this message, finding the courage to face your faults, in this whole series of Uncommon Courage. I mean, I thought it was just to the point. Uh, the reality that we all have issues, we all have, and no matter who you are, we tend to like to compare ourselves, don't we? We like to say, well, I'm not that, or I'm not, this person, or you watch a movie and you're like, oh, I'm definitely not that person. God, you must be happy. But we find out that's not how God works. And I loved how Pastor Wayne talked about that idea of, we like to think, oh, I'm not a drug dealer, I'm not this, and I know some of us have had those rough backgrounds, and if you've been up on our blog, you've read Brandon's story and how he's had a real rough story, and he's done some of those things that maybe culture says is just outright wrong. But the reality is that we're all branded. We all have issues. Because we all need Jesus, and we all have issues right now. The Bible says that everything was taken care of at the cross, but the reality is that once you accept Jesus' work of accept Jesus' gift of forgiveness, sin isn't fully taken away. We still make mistakes. We still have the memory of habits, and so the majority of the times we continue old ways, and half of the Christian faith, living for Jesus, is about undoing things that are of our old ways. And this idea that we all have faults, we all need to work through that, is so relevant. And I really wanted to ask you, who is helping you through that? Pastor Wayne talked about that idea of having somebody to keep you accountable. You need somebody else. You need others. You need friends. You need family. You need somebody to bring you through your tough times. Some of us need it daily. Some of us need it weekly. Some of us need it monthly. Who's the person that's texting you to keep you encouraged? Who's the person that knows everything about you? I mean, I'm not talking about, they get your tweet sent to their phone. I mean, the person that really knows what you're going through. Who is that person? Because we need it. And I have friends that know everything about me. They text me to keep me encouraged, and I text them, and we talk about everything that's going on, because you need to be transparent. You need to not bottle up what's going on. You can't hide, because honestly, people in the Bible that didn't get Jesus did that. They hid themselves. They put on a fake sense of faith. There's this account where Jesus calls the Pharisees whitewashed tombs, and the idea is that during celebrations you couldn't touch certain things because you would be defiled and you wouldn't be able to partake in the festivals, and they would actually paint the tombs white because they didn't want to touch these tombs because there were obviously it would be unclean and you wouldn't be able to really hang out with everyone else. And the idea is that these tombs would be painted white, but inside would be dead. And Jesus, by calling the Pharisee whitewashed tombs, he was saying, you look very pretty, but inside you're dead. And with you need to make sure you're not doing that. You're not putting up a false sense of yourself. And you're all dead inside. And the best way to flush that out, the best way to talk about what's going on to help actually moving forward is getting into some kind of community. And we have that online. I love the image when I was about this weekend actually preparing to go set up everything for the weekend. I had my son with me, who's about to turn 2 in a couple months, and there was at Saddleback in Orange County in California. Our campus is sometimes a lot of terrain, it goes up and down. And I was helping him. I was holding his hand. He's almost 2, so he's kind of, he's walking, but sometimes he falls. And so it's kind of tough, real uphill. So I was holding his hand, and there was a point I was literally just like holding his hand and just pulling him. I was just pulling him up the hill. And I love that image because I didn't just pick him up and just move forward. Because sometimes that needs to happen. But in this context, I was just holding his hand and I was just pulling him up the hill. But he was still walking. And I love that image of how I was helping my son up the hill. And that's the same image of what you guys need, what I need sometimes. Weekly, daily, monthly. We need somebody to just help us pull us forward, to encourage us, that we can be honest with, that they can speak into our lives. Maybe it's just a helpful text, or maybe it's a call, a Skype call or a phone call, or maybe it's a meetup for coffee if you live close. We all need somebody else to keep us encouraged. And so do you have one of those people? Do you have somebody that's speaking into your life? And if you don't, we want to get you into community. We want to get you somewhere where you can get that. So what are some other things that just spoke out during the message, something that just hit you real hard, or maybe you want to elaborate a little bit? And below this video on Facebook, I want to have a little bit of a conversation. So I want to leave on reading 2 Corinthians 13:5. Paul is talking to the church of Corinth that are going through a lot of issues. And actually, they were going, if you read 1 Corinthians, they were going through a lot of stuff, and they've actually repented. And they actually listened to God. They got through it. They were transparent, and they worked through their issues. And in 2 Corinthians, there's still a little bit of a group of people being rebellious, and he's kind of working through that. And in 2 Corinthians 13:5, he says, Paul says to the church in Corinth, examine yourselves to see if your faith is genuine. Test yourselves. Surely you know that Jesus Christ is among you. If not, you have failed the test of genuine faith. One more time. 2 Corinthians 13:5. Examine yourselves to see if your faith is genuine. Test yourselves. Surely you know that Jesus is among you. If not, you have failed the test of genuine faith. So, I want to make sure you're testing your faith to make sure it's genuine. The best way to do that is letting people in on your faults. Don't be a whitewashed tomb, but be honest. Be frank with people. And you can do that online. There's a lot of ways. So make sure you get plugged in, and let's continue this conversation. I want to read this below. I'm excited to engage, so I'll be commenting below.